12 jurors hear what prosecutors call the strongest forensic evidence in American criminal history. Blood at the scene, blood inside the defendant's car, blood on a sock in his own bedroom. The jurors deliberate for fewer than 4 hours. Then they return a verdict that splits the country in two. The case is People versus Orenthal James Simpson. By the time it ends, it has stopped being only a murder trial. It has become a referendum on whether the evidence could be believed at all and on the people who collected it. The strongest case anyone has ever assembled comes apart in open court. And the two people at the center of it are nearly erased by the spectacle around them. Nicole Brown is 35 years old. She is the mother of 2 young children, a daughter of 8 and a son of 5. She marries Orenthal Simpson, the football star and actor, in 1985. They divorce in 1992. In the months before she dies, friends describe a woman rebuilding her life on her own terms. She is close to her family, her work, and her children. The marriage is not a calm one. Over the years, police are called to the home more than once. In 1989, Simpson pleads no contest to spousal battery against Nicole. It is a documented part of the record, and prosecutors will lean on it heavily. The jury hearing the murder case is asked to weigh that history, but a battery years before is not proof of a later killing, and the defense says exactly that. Ron Goldman is 25 years old. He works as a waiter at a restaurant called Mezzaluna, a short drive from Nicole's home. He is ambitious in the way many people of 25 are. He models a little, and dreams of opening a restaurant of his own. On the night of June 12, 1994, he is no one's suspect and no one's target. He is simply a young man doing a small kindness. Earlier that evening, Nicole's mother leaves a pair of glasses behind at the restaurant. Ron offers to return them. He finishes his shift, takes the glasses, and drives to Nicole's condo on Bundy Drive. It is the kind of errand that should take a few minutes. It is also the only reason he is there at all. Sometime after 10 at night, Nicole and Ron are both killed outside her front door. Inside the condo, just beyond the entryway, Nicole's 2 young children are asleep. They are not harmed. For close to 2 hours, no one outside that house knows what has happened on the walkway below the steps. The first sign that something is wrong is a dog. Nicole's Akita is found wandering the neighborhood, restless and alone, its paws stained with blood. A little after midnight, neighbors follow the animal back to the condo on Bundy Drive. They find Nicole at the foot of the steps. They find Ron a short distance away. Both are dead, and the scene tells investigators this was no accident. What follows becomes one of the most heavily documented crime scenes of its time. Investigators photograph and collect blood from the walkway, the back gate, and the path leading away from the bodies. There are drops beside a set of bloody shoe prints, as if left by someone walking away into the dark. The physical record is enormous. So is the public attention. Within a single day, this is no longer a local murder. It belongs to the entire country. Attention turns quickly toward Nicole's former husband. The two had a long and well-documented history together, and investigators want to talk to him. 5 days after the murders, Simpson is formally charged with both killings. He agrees, through his lawyers, to surrender on a set morning. And then he does not appear. Instead, a white Ford Bronco carries Simpson onto the freeways of Los Angeles. A friend is at the wheel. Simpson is in the back. An audience later estimated at around 95 million people watches the slow pursuit unfold live on television. Helicopters track the vehicle from above. Crowds gather on the overpasses to watch it pass. This is the moment a criminal case becomes a national event, and it never quite stops being one. The pursuit ends back at Simpson's estate, where he is finally taken into custody. The trial that follows will run for the better part of a year. It plays out on live television, in front of a judge, whose name the country learns by heart. Witnesses become household names. When the trial opens, the prosecution builds its case on blood. Blood from the scene is tested against samples of Simpson's own. So is blood found inside the Bronco. So is a drop on the driveway of his estate. So is a stain on a dark sock recovered from his bedroom floor. For most of the jurors, the science behind these tests is brand new. And the numbers that come with it are staggering. DNA evidence is still rare in a courtroom in 1995. Prosecution experts walk the jury slowly through the odds. For several of the samples they testify, the chance the blood belongs to anyone other than Simpson runs into the millions to one. For one sample, it runs into the billions. The numbers do not plead, and they do not perform. They simply sit there, fixed and cold, while everything around them is fought over. The blood is not the only thread. A trail of bloody shoe prints at the scene matches a rare and expensive style of shoe in a size Simpson wears. Hair and fiber evidence is entered into the record. A timeline is built around the night, lining up phone calls, a waiting limousine, and the gaps in between. On paper, the case looks close to overwhelming. The defense team does not try to disprove the science head-on. Its lawyers make a smarter and more dangerous argument. The blood may match, they tell the jury, but the people who gathered it cannot be trusted. They point to a crime lab they describe as careless. They point to mistakes in how the samples were stored and handled. And they point, above all, to one detective whose own recorded words will do more damage to this case than any piece of evidence. 2 leather gloves sit close to the heart of the case. One is found at the murder scene on Bundy Drive. Its match is found at Simpson's estate by a detective named Mark Fuhrman. Together, the 2 gloves seem to place a single pair at both locations on the same night. And then, in front of the jury, the prosecution makes a choice it can never take back. A prosecutor asks Simpson to try the gloves on. There in the courtroom, he pulls them over a pair of thin latex gloves, in full view of the jury. They look too tight. He works his fingers and tugs at the leather, and still the gloves will not seat on his hands. There is a chemical reason for this. The leather had been soaked in blood, then frozen and thawed many times for testing, and leather shrinks. But the jury does not watch chemistry. The jury watches a man whose hands do not seem to fit the gloves that are supposed to convict him. The defense seizes the moment completely. Its lead lawyer, Johnnie Cochran, hands the jury a line built to outlast the entire trial. If it does not fit, he tells them, then they must acquit. It is rhythm more than it is evidence. But it lands, and it stays, and the jury carries it into the room with them. By itself, a glove that will not fit might not have been enough. Mark Fuhrman, the detective who found the second glove, has testified under oath about his record and his language. He has stated plainly that he has not used a particular racial slur in the past 10 years. Then, a series of recordings surfaces. They had been made over several years by a screenwriter for a film project. On the tapes, Fuhrman uses that slur over and over again. He also describes police misconduct in casual, almost boastful terms. The recordings simply do not match the man who swore an oath on the stand. Fuhrman is called back to the witness stand. This time, he answers almost nothing at all. Asked whether he has ever falsified a police report, he invokes his right to remain silent. Asked whether he planted any evidence in this case, he invokes that right again. To a jury already primed to doubt, the silence sounds like an answer of its own. So how does a case this strong come apart? The honest answer is that it does not come apart on the science at all. It is no longer only about whether the blood is Simpson's. The numbers still say that it is. The question the defense has built is whether the jury can trust the people who gathered that blood. And that question does not land in a vacuum. The trial unfolds in a city still raw from its recent past. A few years earlier, the violent beating of a man named Rodney King by police had been captured on video. When the officers involved were acquitted, days of unrest swept across Los Angeles. For many in the city, and for much of the jury pool, distrust of the police is not an abstraction. It is recent, and it is real. The defense understands this far better than the prosecution does. It does not need to prove that anyone planted the glove. It only needs the jury to believe that it was possible. Once a detective at the center of the case is caught lying under oath, a question mark attaches itself to everything he touched. By the time the case finally goes to the jury, it has run for nearly 9 months. The country has watched almost every turn of it. Cameras in the courtroom have made celebrities out of lawyers, witnesses, and experts alike. The jurors are sent away to weigh months of testimony and evidence. They are back in fewer than 4 hours. On October 3, 1995, the verdict is read aloud to an audience of tens of millions. Not guilty on both counts. Inside the courtroom and across the country, the reaction is instant and deeply divided. Some people erupt in relief and celebration. Others sit frozen in disbelief. The very same words land as justice for some, and as its complete failure for others. Polls taken in the days that follow show a divide that falls heavily along racial lines. One verdict, and two very different countries hearing it. And underneath the noise sits the hard truth the trial leaves behind. This case is not lost on the evidence. It is lost on the question of who is asking the jury to believe it. The criminal trial ends, but the families of the dead do not stop. In 1996, the relatives of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman bring a civil suit for wrongful death. A civil trial works under a lower standard than a criminal one. It does not ask whether guilt has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. It asks only what is more likely than not to be true. In February 1997, that second jury reaches the opposite conclusion. It finds Simpson liable for the deaths of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown. It orders him to pay more than $33 million in damages to their families. That finding is real and serious, but it is not a criminal conviction. In the eyes of the criminal law, Simpson remains an acquitted man. Simpson never faces another criminal trial for these two murders. He cannot, because the verdict is final and cannot be undone. He goes on to other troubles and other headlines in the years that follow. The bulk of that civil judgment is never actually collected. He dies in 2024, still acquitted of the crime and still liable for it in a separate court. Evidence does not persuade anyone on its own. It persuades through the people who carry it into the room. When those people lose a jury's trust, even near certainty can stop counting for anything. The proof and the verdict can simply part ways. We like to believe that facts decide our cases. As often as not, it is credibility that does. Strip away the cameras, the chase, and the verdict, and two people remain. Nicole Brown was 35, a mother of two, building a quiet life of her own. Ron Goldman was 25, a young man who stopped by only to return a pair of glasses a stranger had left behind. They are the reason this case exists at all. Everything else is just what the world chose to do with their names.